Authors Press.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lance Starr, and I'm from Authors Press. Today is September 1st. Welcome to another virtual interview where I am gathered here today with Othello Bach, the author of Cry into the Wind. Please introduce yourself to us, Ms. Bach.
Hello, I'm Othello Bach. Nice to meet everybody.
Hey, that sounds good. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a writer. I'm an artist. I like to make up songs on the piano.
Yeah.
And that's how I spend my life.
So the title of your book is Cry into the Wind. Where did you come up with that title?
Well, it kind of has a two-source name.
Mm-hmm.
One, when my mother used it, it meant I can't help you right now. In other words, and the only time it appears in the book that she says it, we're in the back of a truck, all the kids are, and we're hungry, and we're banging on the hood of the truck, telling her we're hungry. Well, when she says you might as well cry into the wind, that means you're going to have to wait, because with no food in the front of the truck, okay?
Yes.
So, but there's another source for it. I became probably crazy would be a good word. When I was about 12 in an orphanage, so lonely, separated from all my siblings, we couldn't live together in the orphanage. And one day, I'm outside by myself, standing in a big wheat field. This is in Oklahoma. And I was so sad that I thought, I bet you if I write a letter and say where I am and ask somebody to come and get me, if I tear that letter up into little pieces and throw it into the wind, I thought it would magically reassemble itself and land in the hands of good people who would want to take me in. So I was given to fantasy early.
That sounds beautiful. It sounds very inspirational, and it's I really enjoy hearing that. That sounds like amazing. So I have another question for you. Is this the first book you've ever written?
It is the first book I wrote. Yes.
So what inspired you to start writing? Did it come to you like just out of a sudden, or did you have this this passion to write a book, or you always wanted to do something like that?
No, I was trying to get some attention to the fact that the orphanages that are church supported, the churches that support them need to check on them and see what's going on. And so, I knew that if people knew what was going on, they probably would stop supporting it, or they'd call the police. So anyway, that was my motivation, and I was afraid if I didn't write it while everything was fresh, I think I was 24 when I wrote it. If I didn't write it while my memories were clear, I was afraid I would forget.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it's really a good thing.
Yes.
that I did that.
So in the orphanage, just from based off what you're telling me, so it wasn't a really good environment, right?
It was a horrible environment. I lived in 2 different orphanages, and they had the same plan in both, and that was that when siblings come in,
yes,
they immediately separated, and they're not allowed to be together again, which just compounds the problem for all of them.
Well, it sounds like you're in a better place now, and you've grown from that experience. So, and now you get to tell your story about your life to other people, and it's very inspiring. It seems like you survived the system, and that's just really inspirational for everyone who's listening. And this book seems like the perfect sort of documentation of just the horrors of what you went through. So I'm very proud for you to share your story. So when you were writing your book, what was the highlight of writing it? Was there any moment where you had a realization or did you have any sort of like emotional moment in a book where writing these difficult topics may have caused something, So yeah, what was the highlight, the total highlight of writing your book?
The biggest thrill and epiphany that I experienced was I was teaching myself to read, and I had only 15 letters I knew the sounds of, and I was pasting those together in my mind as I read. And I got through a first grade book that way and took it back to the library, which I was in 8th grade at this point. I was a non-reader forever. I did not know how anybody knew what those shapes, letters were. I loved to draw the letters, but I didn't know what good they were. But anyway, while I was teaching myself to read with 15 letters that were in my name, I read the first book called The Mystery of the Little Green Turtle. And I took it back to the librarian, and I said, I want to check out another book. And that was the first book I ever checked out, was in 8th grade. And so when she said, what book? I said, I don't know. You give me one. And she said, what age group? And I said, high school, because I thought, oh boy, I can read now. But I was really surprised by 4 and 5 syllable words, She gave me Daphne du Maurier's best-selling thriller. And when I started working my way through the first chapter, grunting and groaning under my covers with a flashlight, because I hadn't told anybody I couldn't read. I cheated up until that point. Every spelling test was a cheat. But anyway, all of a sudden I started to get very afraid, and I couldn't figure out what the fear was from. So I laid still. I felt like there's a monster under my bed. And I asked myself, what was I doing? And I thought, well, I was just reading. Reading? Then it occurred to me, oh, somebody else's words going through my mind scared me.
Yeah.
Then I thought, hey, you know what? I can tell myself good words. I can tell myself words that'll make me feel strong, and that was the turning point in my life. And most people have no idea that their words are influencing their emotions, the very words they speak and think and listen to. Anyway, it became my saving grace, was because I knew I could change my life with that information.
Well, so that sounds amazing. I mean, I'm super glad that you're just so open about everything so far. That's just, I get to learn a little bit about you, and our viewers get to learn about, you and your story and your inspiration about the book. So that's really something. So yes, you did talk about how you couldn't read up until the 8th grade. And was that a product of the orphanage, or was there some sort of like holding back because you were in the orphanage system?
It probably was a result of watching my mother burn to death, which I did. Our little shack we lived in caught fire, and she came stumbling out the back door, totally in flames. And I was in 1st grade at that point, had just started 1st grade. And I'm assuming it created an emotional block. That's all I know. Because I'm surprised that the first 6 grades in the orphanage were taught at the orphanage. And we didn't go into public school until 7th grade. I cheated. I was a clever cheater. I wrote the words inside the cuffs of my shirts, on the hem of my dress, things like this. In between my fingers, I would write the spelling words, So I was a good cheater. And nobody ever seemed to notice. Oh, I do have a funny story about it, though.
Go ahead. We're all here to listen.
This is in 6th grade. I still could not, I didn't understand letters at all. So one day the teacher said he wanted us to write our full name on the papers from now on. First, middle, and last name. Well, I had memorized letters for Othello. James was my maiden name. but I had a middle name of Fern. I had no idea what letters would make the word. So I looked at it a long time and tried to remember it, but I could only remember 3. So I'd write F-N-E, and he would put a question mark. We got the paperback question mark, and it's underlined with red. So I tried the next time with F-R-N, and I just tried different combinations, but I could only remember 3 letters. Finally, after trying all my combinations, he's still making a question mark by my name, the teacher. And so finally I thought, well, you know what? He didn't know how to spell it either.
That is pretty funny. I did enjoy that. So, right, with the topics that we're talking about, we have to ask the question, with all these struggles that you had in your childhood about writing, reading, and spelling because of your personal struggles, did you ever think that you were able to write a book? Like at that, did you ever think that in your wildest dreams that you would be able to write a book?
No. However, when I sold my first story, which was a novel, which was a thriller, I did chase down a couple of cousins.
Yeah.
And when I took the book to them, I said, look what I did. I got a book published. And I was so excited. And their question is it scary? I said, yes. They said, we're not surprised. When you were 5 years old, you'd get us little kids down in the basement in the cellar, sit on the top step, and you'd tell us bloody bones and butcher knife stories. So I guess I've always liked thrillers.
Hey, whatever you like. So this also is a perfect stepping stone into the next question, which I didn't know. So you have written another book.
Oh, I have 30 books on Amazon.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that at all. That's really something. So what genres do you like? I've heard thriller, and this one sounds more like inspirational.
Thrillers, how to write, how to do hypnosis, because I was hypnotherapist also for 25 years. Books on spiritual topics. Yeah, I write in like 4 or 5 genres.
And so do you just, is this like a daily routine? Do you just get on, where do you write these books? Like, tell us a little bit about like your process.
I sit right where I'm sitting now because I'm up to my computer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just sit in the computer.
So you wake up in the morning, you get ready, and you start writing?
Well, it's when I get a new idea I want to write on, and then every day I get up and work on that idea until I've got the book finished.
Oh, okay. So, are you pleased with the outcome of this book?
Am I what?
Are you pleased with the outcome of this book?
You mean the public response?
As in, like, are you happy with the end product? Like.
Yes, I'm very happy with it.
That sounds great. So, do you have any other books that you're currently writing?
Right at this moment, yeah, I got 55 books written in my drawers over here, my cabinets, that I haven't had time to get on Amazon. I like to write for children too.
Wow, that's really something. So let's see, we have a few more questions for you today. So, let's talk back about when you're, in the orphanage and the things you were struggling with. Your childhood was filled with lots of tragedies on top of some of the things you shared with me about your mother and about being held back and the emotional blockage. So how did you manage to overcome the effects and move on? I think briefly you spoke that you were seeing a therapist. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
How I overcame it?
Yes, how you overcame your struggles.
Oh, by talking to myself, telling myself things I wanted to believe. I did not want to believe I was so stupid that I had to cheat. And so I started, after I discovered words had influence on the way I felt, I started telling myself things that make me feel good. That's really the key.
So more like self-healing?
Yes.
Wow.
But it's like, say what you want, not what you're afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
say what you want. Now, what is, so I'll say this to all the listeners. When you're feeling like you're getting behind, or you've fallen behind, or you're not as good as somebody else, tell yourself good things. Like, I can do this. I can have my dream come true. I can make it come true. I don't know how today, but I will do it. I will do it. And being a spiritual person, I always think the power of love is with me all the time.
Hey, so I have just a few more, and then we'll start wrapping things up. So let's see. So when you were going through that, when was it that you kind of were able to leave the situation? Like, tell us how you got out of that situation and where you are. So tell us a little bit about your life journey. I'm actually very curious about that myself.
If I understand what you're wanting, when I got out of the orphanage and took control of my life,
yes,
telling myself what I wanted instead of what I was afraid of, I took a normal job. I mean, I became a secretary first, worked that way. And but I went ahead and did things like write and draw and to please myself. And we've got to please ourselves if we want to be happy. And if if we don't please ourselves, we feel like victims, but we're the victimizer.
Yeah, okay. You answered that question beautifully. So you said that your books are on Amazon. Is that the only place that they're available?
No, a lot of libraries carry them.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and bookstores.
Yeah, that sounds just great. I'm glad, it sounds like just an amazing book. In fact, it sounds something that I would be really interested in reading, and it's such an honor to be able to interview you. So just to close things off, I'm very happy to have done this interview. I've learned a lot about you. I think the readers have learned a lot about you. I think we all can reflect on some childhood memories and stuff, and really learn to accept what it is that happened to us and how we can overcome and grow from the situation. So I would have to say it's very inspirational. I had a pleasure speaking with you. So my very last question is about Authors Press, us here at the company. I would like to know, how do you feel about working with us? How was your experience so far?
The Zoom meeting was pretty maddening. But other than that, because I'd never done that before, you've been a very pleasant bunch of people to work with.
That sounds great. I'm very happy to be able to represent our brand, and I'm very happy to have interviewed you today. And yeah, that is all the questions I have for you today. Thank you so much for meeting with me today and discussing your books. It's been very pleasant. It's been an honor. And for the viewers out there, if you have any questions, concerns, please feel free to reach us out at Authors Press, either via email or phone number, and we'll be happy to assist you. This has been Othello Bach, the author of Cry into the Wind, and Landstar, myself, from Authors Press. Thank you for tuning in.